I followed my father to the Greenland wastes to uncover his secrets. You had to know how far I was willing to go. I found a disused mining shaft and took shelter from the storm. You had to know how desperate I was. I was plagued by doubts, fears, and mysteries, and aided by a madman, Red. You had to know how lonely I was. I incinerated my best friend. Red told me he wanted to die. You had to know how guilty I felt. I ventured boldly onwards, and was struck down by my own heroics. You had to know how stupid I was. All of these things. So human, so perfect. And yet still I failed to do what I must now ask of you.
In the frozen, wind-swept wastes of Greenland, far from the warming touch of sunlight, beneath the thick, impenetrable ice, there lies a story not merely of survival, but of profound moral and existential horrors that gnaw at the very fabric of sanity. Penumbra Black Plague is no ordinary tale of mystery. It is a harrowing journey into the heart of darkness, where the boundaries between right and wrong, between sanity and madness, dissolve into dread and despair. The narrative probes deep into the morality of humans and the alien entity known as the Tuurngait, challenging the very core of what it means to be human, and whether such a thing as righteousness is even possible in the cold, uncaring void of existence. In the story's haunting, shadowy recesses, we confront an unsettling question. Who holds the moral high ground? Is it the Tuurngait, an ancient being whose existence stretches beyond the comprehension of time, seeking only to preserve its life in ancient knowledge? Or is it Philip, the hapless protagonist whose quest for truth drives him into the maw of madness and violence? This is a story of stark contrasts between the insatiable curiosity of mankind and the desperate survival instincts of an alien species, between individual morality and the terrifying amorphous immorality of the collective, and between the flickering light of knowledge and the all-consuming darkness of despair. As we navigate the bleak, claustrophobic corridors of the Archaic Elevated Castes Research Facility, the story unfurls like a tapestry woven from shadows and nightmares. Each chapter, each encounter, draws us deeper into the abyss, forcing us to grapple with uncomfortable truths about the nature of morality, the ethics of survival, and the unfathomable cost of forbidden knowledge. This essay will delve into these themes, examining the narrative not merely as a horror story, but as a profound psychological exploration of the human condition, one that leaves us questioning the very nature of reality itself. The tale of Penumbra begins in the midst of chaos, with Philip awakening in a locked, suffocating room, where his mind is a jumbled blur of terror and violence. The air around him is thick, with an oppressive sense of foreboding, as if the very walls of this underground facility are alive, watching, waiting to consume him. This is no mere prison. This is a mausoleum of ancient and malevolent forces, where the barrier between reality and nightmare is as thin as the ice that seals this forsaken place from the outside world. Philip's escape from his initial confinement is not a moment of triumph, but a prelude to horrors far greater than he could ever imagine. Crawling through a narrow, suffocating air vent, he emerges into a facility that is no longer a place of science and discovery, but a tomb. A once thriving research base now reduced to a desolate ruin, its echoing halls haunted by the grotesque moans of the infected. These creatures, once human, are now twisted and deformed by a viral plague, their bodies and minds subsumed into a hive consciousness that has erased every shred of individuality. Yet, Philip's fate is not to join the ranks of these mindless horrors. The virus that courses through his veins does not claim him as it did the others. Instead, it manifests in a far more insidious form, known as Clarence, a malevolent split personality that embodies the worst aspects of Philip's psyche.
Life, Philip,
Clarence is no mere figment of madness. He is the whispering serpent of corruption and decay, insinuating himself into Philip's thoughts, mocking his fears, driving him inexorably towards the brink of insanity. His presence is a constant, sinister reminder that the true horrors lies not just in the monsters that lurk in the shadows, but in the darkness that festers within the human soul. As Philip navigates the archaic elevated caste shelter facility, he uncovers fragments of a story that began long before his arrival. A story of hubris, forbidden knowledge, and cosmic dread. The Archaic, a secretive organization, had come to Greenland in search of the Tuurngait, the entity of unimaginable power and ancient lineage, described in the Inuit mythology as a primordial spirit. But their pursuit of knowledge tainted by greed and arrogance led to their downfall. They penetrated too deep, disturbing the slumber of the Tuurngait, and in doing so, unleashed a force beyond their control. A force that regarded them as mere insects to be swatted aside. At the core of Penumbra lies the question of human curiosity, whether it is a noble pursuit leading to enlightenment, or a perilous path that inevitably leads to destruction. The Archaic's exploration of the Tuurngait and the ensuing catastrophe serves as a grim reflection of this dilemma. Their intentions, though perhaps rooted in the desire to expand human knowledge, ultimately culminate in their undoing. The story suggests an unsettling truth, that some mysteries are too dangerous to unravel, some knowledge too perilous to possess. Human curiosity has always been a double-edged sword. It is the driving force behind scientific discovery, artistic creation, and technological innovation. It has led to the exploration of distant lands, the uncovering of ancient secrets, and the development of new ways of understanding the world around us. Yet, it has also birthed weapons of mass destruction, the exploitation of natural resources, and the desecration of sacred sites. The pursuit of knowledge when divorced from ethical considerations can result in consequences that are both devastating and irreversible. The Archaic's curiosity is portrayed as a fatal flaw, a desire to know and control that ultimately brings about their demise. Their exploration of the Tuurngait, driven by a thirst for power and dominance, is a testament to the perils of overreaching, of seeking to conquer and manipulate forces that elude human comprehension. The Tuurngait as an alien entity represents the limits of human understanding, the notion that certain truths are beyond our grasp, certain forces beyond our control. Philip's journey echoes this theme on a personal level. His quest for answers, his relentless drive to uncover the truth behind his father's death, and the mysteries of the Tuurngait lead him deeper into the darkness. Yet this same quest forces him to confront the horrors that reside within himself, the capacity for violence, madness, and moral compromise. In seeking the truth, Philip sacrifices his innocence, and in a sense, his humanity. The knowledge he gains exacts a terrible toll, leaving us to ponder whether the pursuit of truth is always worth the price. It is a question that lingers throughout the narrative like a spectral presence, a question that offers no easy answers, only the cold, indifferent reality of a universe that cares nothing for our suffering. The Tuurngait is no mere monster. It is an ancient entity, a relic from a time before human thought could comprehend the vastness of existence.
Do not be alarmed. This space is in your mind, mankind. If you know yourself, you have nothing to fear. I, on the other hand, stand to lose everything.
It operates on a moral framework that is as alien as the stars themselves, one that is fundamentally different from the narrow, anthropocentric understanding of good and evil. Its actions, infecting and controlling the minds of the Archaic personnel, unleashing a deadly virus that sweeps throughout the facility like a plague. These actions are driven not by malice, but by a primal, deep-seated instinct for survival. The Tuurngait's morality is not bound by human concepts of righteousness or wickedness. It is a cold, pragmatic, almost utilitarian approach to existence. Its primary concern, its only concern, is the preservation of its own life and the protection of the ancient knowledge it carries. Knowledge that in the wrong hands could bring about cataclysms beyond imagining. From a human perspective, The Tuurngait's actions may appear malicious, even monstrous. The transformation of the archaic scientists into mindless, shambling infected, the unleashing of a viral plague that decimated the facility. These could be easily seen as acts of wanton cruelty. To the Tuurngait, these are necessary measures, taken in response to an existential threat.
I remember why you're here. Dr. Swanson has filled me in. I recall every single syllable of our conversation. There was ever so slight an inflection in her tone that suggested she no longer trusted me. Why ever dinosaur extinction 65 million years ago would she think that? We share the same history. You and I are history. I recall the day of my birth, 18th of September, 1964, 3.46993412, recurring minutes past 9. I remember my mother looking surprised as I poked my head out into the world for the first time. You need a security registered palm. Something I can provide. You need it at the library. Something beyond my reach. When I became infected by those mindless zombies, I split off from the others and secured myself here. I cannot leave. Nonetheless, you will need a hand. I will not. Bring me a saw.
The Archaic's intrusion into its domain, their relentless attempts to control and exploit it, left the Tuurngait with no choice but to defend itself with all the tools at its disposal. This prompts profound and unsettling ethical dilemmas. Can survival justify any action, no matter how extreme? Is the Tuurngait's eradication of the Archaic a moral necessity, or merely an instinctual response to a threat? To grasp the Tuurngait's morality, one must look beyond the simplistic dichotomies of human ethics. The Tuurngait is not a creature of malice. It is a being that has existed for millions of years, carrying the weight of ancient cosmic knowledge and the responsibility of its preservation. Its interactions with humanity have always been fraught with tension, as mankind's insatiable curiosity and boundless greed have repeatedly brought it into conflict with the Tuurngait's need for secrecy and survival. The entity's decision to infect the Archaic personnel was not born out of a desire to harm, but out of a necessity to protect itself from further exploitation, to protect the knowledge it carries from falling into the hands of those who would use it for unspeakable purposes. The Tuurngait's view of humanity is complex and nuanced, as befitting a being of such ancient lineage. It recognizes the potential for compassion and intelligence in individuals, as evidenced by its interactions with Philip. Yet, it also perceives humanity as a collective force of destruction, driven by greed, fear, and an insatiable thirst for power. This duality is reflected in the Tuurngait's final test for Philip, a chance that is ultimately doomed to failure. Philip's journey through the Archaic facility is not merely a physical descent into the bowels of the earth, but a psychological and moral plunge into an abyss that threatens to consume his very soul. At the outset, Philip is a man driven by a desire for truth, a desire to uncover the mystery surrounding his father's death and to unfold the moral concept of the Tuurngait. But as the horror of the facility closes in around him, as the oppressive darkness of the ancient complex seeps into his mind, and as Clarence's insidious influence grows, Philip's moral compass begins to waver.
Look here. It seems, the visual cortex of this monkey is certainly of a simplistic design. If I can just... There, you see? It's like molding clay. Hate to interrupt you while you're showing off your logical problem solving. Let me put it more simply. You see what I want you to see.
The line between right and wrong becomes increasingly dim, and the man who once sought only to survive and uncover the truth finds himself committing acts of unspeakable violence and betrayal. Clarence's presence is the catalyst for Philip's descent, a presence that is not merely a figment of Philip's infected mind, but a malevolent force that embodies the maliciousness of human nature. Clarence is a whispering serpent of sin and corruption, a voice that feeds on Philip's fears, driving him ever closer to the abyss. His taunts are not just cruel jests. They're corrosive, insidious forces that erode Philip's sanity.
There's just something about a rusty saw that just makes me purr. Had a tetanus jab recently?
Pushing him towards actions that he would have once found unthinkable. Clarence is the dark mirror in which Philip sees his own capacity for evil. His capacity for violence, for madness, for self-destruction. He is the voice of temptation, the serpent in the garden, the shadow that lies just beneath the surface of the human soul, waiting for the right moment to strike.
You came! I guess I didn't really expect you to bother. My lab partner's such a pessimist. Was such a pessimist. It kind of rubbed off on me. He tried to make it through to me not too long ago. I guess he's a bit late for the party. You'll have to make a quick detour over the surface next, but be careful. If the cold doesn't kill you, well, let's just say I didn't pick the safest of locales for my last-ditch survival attempt.
Through his desperate communications with Amabel Swanson, a lone scientist who has miraculously survived the initial outbreak by barricading herself in a cold, sterile lab, Philip learns more about the Tuurngait and the eldritch horrors it represents. Amabel, clinging to hope in the face of despair, offers Philip a glimmer of salvation, a cure perhaps for the infection that is slowly consuming him. But as Philip draws closer to her, Clarence's influence grows stronger, his taunts more vicious and venomous. The line between reality and hallucination begins to start, and Philip is driven not by hope, but by the gnawing, inescapable knowledge that something far worse awaits him in the darkness. The culmination of Philip's journey is a tragedy of cosmic proportions, one that feels inevitable as if written by the hands of cruel, unseen gods.
Oh, looky here, more perilous, death-defying action, courtesy of the skinny English professor. Rambo, you are not. Try running towards him, screaming for a change.
In a moment of hallucinatory madness, orchestrated by Clarence, Philip murders Amabel.
Hey, good work, buddy. Give yourself a slap on the back with a crowbar, why don't you? Oh, one thing, before you get too overwhelmed with glee. I know murder can be a lot of fun, but, didn't you quite like that broad? Hey, I think that's a piece of her skull on your shoe.
This act of violence is not just a crime, it is a symbolic descent into the abyss, the final severing of Philip's humanity, a plunge into a darkness from which there is no escape. The murder of Amabel Swanson is the turning point in Philip's descent. Amabel was the one person who could have saved Philip, who could have provided a cure for the infection that was slowly consuming him. Her death marks the point of no return, a moment when Philip's journey becomes less about the survival and more about the inevitability of his own destruction. A destruction that seems less a punishment and more a cosmic damnation, written in the stars long before Philip took his first breath. Yet, even as Philip descends into darkness, he does not surrender completely. His decision to rid himself of Clarence, to undergo a painful procedure that extracts the malevolent presence from his mind, is an act of defiance, a refusal to be completely consumed by the evil within him. Yet, this act of self-purification is ultimately futile. Clarence is not destroyed, he is merely transferred into a new form, a reanimated corpse, a vessel driven by the same malice and hatred that once poisoned Philip's thoughts.
What a pretty body! Mine! Mine! Mine!
This transformation is not a victory, but a grim testament to the persistence of sin and self-destruction. A reminder that no matter how hard we try to escape it, the darkness within us can never be fully eradicated. The final confrontation between Philip and Clarence is not merely a battle for survival, but a battle for the soul. A struggle that forces Philip to confront the darkest aspects of his own nature. The guilt, the fear, the anger that Clarence represents. In the end, it is not Philip who destroys Clarence, but the Tuurngait, sending its infected minions to annihilate the rogue consciousness that now threatens its existence.
At the end, this one was more human than he would have believed. Mankind, for his actions, I am sorry. For his next misconduct, I am sorry. Do not hate me.
But this act of salvation is not without cost, for it marks the beginning of Philip's final test, a test that will determine not his fate, but the fate of the Tuurngait as well. The Tuurngait's final request to Philip is simple, yet fraught with cosmic implications. Destroy all evidence of its existence, wipe out the research that the Archaic has conducted, and allow it to rest in peace, free from the prying eyes of mankind. This is the same plea that Philip's father, Howard, received years before, a plea that he failed to heed, leading to his own demise and the horrors that have once since unfolded. But Philip, unlike his father, seems poised to comply, the Tuurngait recognizing something in Philip, a resistance, a defiance, a spark of something that could be mistaken for courage, ultimately forces the Tuurngait to communicate with him directly. It sends him into a dreamlike state, a series of spiritual trials designed to probe the depths of his morality, his capacity for mercy, cooperation, and self-sacrifice. These tests are not merely challenges, they're a mirror, reflecting back to Philip the darkness that has always been within him, forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions.
Though I am one, my number is infinite. Through this, I see the needs of the many outweigh the life of just one.
To face the truth of what he has become. In passing these tests, Philip is granted a final revelation, a glimpse into the unfathomable ancient history of the Tuurngait. It is an entity that predates humanity by eons, a being that once coexisted peacefully within the native Inuit.
I came here to this place many millions of years ago, before mankind was even upright. As eons came and went, mankind appeared around me and found names for me. Demon, spirit, Tuurngait. We existed in harmony for much time. I lying dormant within what you refer to as the infected, and they benefiting from my knowledge and protection. But mankind changed, and I fled. So much power in mankind, so many questions, and yet without the intelligence to answer them.
Sharing its vast, incomprehensible knowledge throughout the infected, who acted as vessels for its wisdom. But as humanity grew, expanding and encroaching on the Tuurngait's domain, the entity was forced to retreat, burrowing deep underground to escape the greed and destructiveness of mankind. The arrival of the Archaic with their insatiable thirst for power was seen as an existential threat, and the Tuurngait responded as any cornered beast might, by unleashing a plague that decimated the facility and its inhabitants. The story of Penumbra suggests that human curiosity is both a gift and a curse. It is the force that drives us to explore, to discover, to understand. But it is also the force that propels us to overreach, to push beyond the boundaries of what we can control, to uncover secrets that are best left buried. The Archaic's downfall and Philip's descent into darkness serves as cautionary tales against the dangers of unchecked curiosity, a stark illustration that there are limits to what we should seek to know, and that some truths are too dangerous to uncover. In the end, the pursuit of knowledge may not lead to enlightenment, but to our own ruin. A ruin that is as inevitable as the passage of time, as inexorable as the turning of the stars. The Archaic's elevated caste in their research facility, the shelter, serves as the ultimate symbol of human hubris, the arrogance that comes with the belief that all knowledge can be attained, all secrets uncovered, all mysteries solved. The Archaic's pursuit of the Tuurngait, driven by a desire for power and control, is a testament to the dangers of overreaching, of seeking to conquer and exploit forces that are beyond human comprehension. They are the modern-day Prometheus, reaching out to steal fire from the gods, only to find that the fire is a thing of unspeakable horror, a force that cannot be contained, a flame that consumes all who touch it. The shelter, with its cold, sterile corridors and hidden horrors, is a physical manifestation of the Archaic's arrogance. It is a place where scientific curiosity gave way to madness, where the pursuit of knowledge becomes indistinguishable from the pursuit of power. The infected, once brilliant minds now reduced to mindless drones are the tragic consequences of this folly, a stark illustration that the quest for enlightenment can lead not to wisdom, but to ruin. The Archaic story is a cautionary tale, a warning of the perils of human ambition when it is divorced from ethical considerations, when it is driven not by a desire to understand, but by a desire to control. The Archaic's downfall is not merely a failure of science, but a moral collapse, a failure to recognize the limits of human understanding and the consequences of crossing those limits. The Tuurngait's retaliation, its decision to unleash a viral plague upon the facility, is a response to this arrogance, a cosmic judgment against the human desire to dominate and control. The Archaic's action compels us to confront the ethical quandaries of human curiosity and the pursuit of scientific exploration. Is it right to seek knowledge at any cost, even if that knowledge possesses a threat to our own existence? Can the pursuit of power ever be justified if it leads to the annihilation of others? The story of the Archaic suggests that there are boundaries we must not cross, that there are forces in the universe best left undisturbed. The Tuurngait's fate is tragic, for despite its ancient wisdom, despite its attempts to protect itself, the Tuurngait is ultimately undone by the very being it sought to escape. Philip's act, his decision to reject the Tuurngait's plea and call for its destruction, is both a rejection of the alien morality imposed upon him and a surrender to the darkness within himself. It is a complex, ambiguous decision, one that confronts the very nature of free will, the cost of survival, and the capacity for redemption. Is Philip's choice an assertion of his humanity, a refusal to be manipulated by an alien force? Or is it the ultimate expression to his descent into madness, a final surrender to the darkness that Clarence awakened within him? These are questions that the narrative leave unanswered, as if to suggest that the answers themselves are as elusive and unknowable as the dark, uncaring cosmos in which Philip finds himself trapped. He sends a message to the surface, detailing his journey and the unspeakable horrors he has witnessed. But in a final, chilling twist, Philip reveals his true intent, not to aid the Tuurngait, but to ensure its destruction. In a declaration that echoes with the cold, uncaring logic of cosmic indifference, he urges his contact on the surface to kill them all, sealing the fate of the Tuurngait and perhaps his own. Philip's choice is fraught with complexity. On one hand, he has been manipulated and controlled by forces beyond his comprehension. The Tuurngait, an ancient and alien entity, has sought to use him as a pawn in his own existential struggle. On the other hand, Clarence, a malevolent presence born from the Tuurngait virus, has sought to corrupt and destroy him from within. In rejecting the Tuurngait's plea, Philip is asserting his own autonomy, his right to make his own decisions, to chart his own course, to determine his own fate. Yet, this assertion of free will is not without consequence. By choosing to call for the Tuurngait's destruction, Philip is also abdicating the moral responsibilities inherited in this autonomy. He chooses to act not out of a sense of duty or compassion, but out of a desire to affirm his own independence, to exercise his own free will. This decision provokes a deeper exploration of morality and the ethics of free will. Is it sufficient to merely make a choice, or does the morality of that choice hinge on the motivations behind it? Can free will be genuinely free if it is divorced from moral responsibility? These are not merely philosophical musings, but integral components of the narrative, suggesting that the answers are as elusive and inscrutable as the dark facility in which Philip finds himself ensnared. Penumbra transcends the boundaries of mere horror and survival. It is a profound exploration of morality, madness, and the human condition. Through the chilling narrative of Philip's descent into darkness, the enigmatic morality of the Tuurngait, and the tragic hubris of the Archaic, we are confronted with the most disturbing aspects of our own nature. The story offers no simple answers, only a tapestry of mysteries that linger in the recesses of the mind like shadows in a dimly lit room. In the end, we're left to ponder the nature of morality in a world where survival often demands the sacrifice of our deepest values, where the line between hero and monster is so much alike as it almost becomes indistinguishable.